Okay, this is like this is fantastic. Okay, so you guys have like you guys did an episode like of intrusive thoughts like a way long time ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Like Call to the Void, I think it was episode 9.
Yeah. So I think it was like, what day was this? Like Wednesday or something. Um, Brittany and I were laying in bed, and um, she just rolls over and like starts talking. She goes, "Do you know that Mario game where like you're Luigi and like you have to find Mario?" And I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about."
Luigi's Mansion.
No, it's not Luigi's Mansion. She's like, it's for the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
And I was like, I have no idea what this game is you're talking about. So like I was like, she's like, well, how? She's like, what do you mean you don't know? And I'm like, I've never heard of this game. And she's like, well, I'm trying to figure out like what it's called because like I can't remember. And I'm like, well, just Google like missing Mario, Luigi, or whatever, right? And so she Googles like a couple different things and finds it, and it's called Where is It's like Where is Mario or something like that, and it's like Carmen Sandiego, but like you're Luigi trying to find like a kidnapped Mario. And she's like, "Oh my god, I found it!" And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Why are you thinking about that?" And she says to me, "I literally think about this all the time." And I'm like, "This is not the first time that she said that to me." And so I said to her, if I thought about the things that you say you think about all the time, I could not live my life. And then she goes, okay, well, there's something else I think about all the time. She's like, what if like your nipples were connected? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, are you talking about like just like two giant like nipples that like go like meet each other like a Venn diagram? She's like, no, like if they were like connected like by a tube. And I'm like, so you're telling me you think about if you like had like one nipple that stretched, came all the way around to the other nipple in like a nipple tube, like a door knocker. That's what you're talking about? She's like, yeah. And I fucking lost it. I could not stop laughing. But the worst part is like this is like 11:30, like midnight. So the baby's asleep and I'm trying not to wake the baby up, and I'm just like and then she follows it up with this. I can't believe she fucking said this to me like this late at night when I'm trying to go to sleep. She's like, you know how like people see colors? And I was like, yeah. She goes, okay, well, what if like when I say like I'm seeing green, but to you it looks purple, but you just agree that it's green. And I'm like, I was like, what? Trying to like piece this together. I'm like, so you're saying like you see something as green, but I see it as what you would call purple, but to me that color is green. She's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's called subjectivity. You'll never know the way other people experience the world. And then she's like, all right, well, good night.
Oh my god.
I'm like, what the fuck?
And you're just sitting there like laying there like wide-eyed like, oh my god, she's right.
I'm like, I'm laying there like I have to be awake in 5 hours. Like,
and it's going to take me at least 5 hours to process this.
Exactly. She's like, and then she goes like, you don't like ever just like think about like random stuff? And I'm like, I mean, I do, but my intrusive thoughts are like not that deep. It's more like I'll be spinning off into some like ADHD wormhole of thoughts, and then like I'll end on like how much I enjoy the sound of like slime plopping down, and that's about it. Like it's not as deep as like what you're thinking about.
I love me a good slime plopping down.
There's just something so refreshing about that. I don't know what that sounded like to you guys, but I'm gonna hate it when I hear it on the playback. Does this only happen to me, or do your guys' like significant others also like torture you with existentialism?
I wouldn't say that Ashley tortures me with existentialism, but she definitely brings it up every once in a while. She's done it a lot less lately, and I don't know. I feel like that might be because maybe I judge her for it, and I don't mean to. Like, I just kind of sit there quietly and listen and go, uh-huh. But, like, It's not like I'm sitting there and she's on a couch and I'm writing on like a pen and paper pad, you know, while she describes it to me. So, Wes, how about you?
I'm probably the offender.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're tuning in from across the country and around the world. This is the Life Midwest Podcast. Join us, a washed-up musician, a communications major, and an Army veteran who's originally from the Midwest, as we talk about current events and things that are current and events. Thanks for tuning into episode 66, everybody. I'm your host, Kevin Palmer. That's our Thai correspondent, Wes Shirley, over there.
Howdy.
Joining us from Washington, Seattle's best, Lenny Wells.
Ham boning.
All right, I gotta ask: Do you wake up knowing what you're gonna do?
No, I absolutely do not. It's all like right off the cuff.
Wow. Wes, how about you?
No, I barely plan for it seconds ahead. It's mostly just vomiting whatever's at my tongue.
Okay. I'm just curious. Speaking of vomiting whatever's on your tongue, we're going to be finishing up the discussion today on media bias and talk a little bit about political views and how you can get a more clear picture of yours. Yes, you. A few things to remember from last week's episode before we begin. I'm gonna blow your minds here. All media has bias. Even the ones who strive to maintain neutrality have what's called a central bias, where they are trying to not stray from the path and just deliver factual current events as to what's going on in the world or in your local region. The other thing is to keep in mind is that people tend to interpret all types of media as quote unquote news. For example, even like infotainment pieces like late night talk shows that are meant to be, funny, they're making jokes based on current events. And so, a lot of people consider that their news, or they take that as their news, or that's the closest thing they get to news. And then there's also like opinion pieces like fucking Tucker Carlson on Fox News that people think are the news. So we're going to kind of get into all that today a little bit here and talking about media bias. And we actually have a really great chart we're going to dissect a little bit towards the end of the show here today, too, as far as, is what you listen to or is what you consume left, right? Are they considered central? You might be surprised. I think we were with a couple, too. Stick around, all that and more today. But for now, I want to kick it off to Wes. Wes, you had mentioned that we're kind of, the news isn't regulated, but we're definitely coming back to a time where it needed to be. It almost feels like, wouldn't you say?
There's been definitely, history's had its share of propagandists, and we had yellow journalism, at the turn of the 20th century. Turn of the 21st century. Wait, no, we're in the 21st century. At the turn of the 20th century, they had to outlaw that shit. Like, you just can't. I think we're revisiting dark times as far as that goes. I think they've laxed on regulation because everything is now infotainment. Like, it has the news logo, but it's an opinion piece. So we masquerade as the news, and people believe it's the news, but we're not actually the news. Whereas in the past, it was newspapers like, yo, this actually happened, but it didn't.
I mean, this is why, even though there are plenty of online resources to tell you about media biases, it's still best to understand media bias yourself and decide based on your values and beliefs where media lands on your political spectrum. So if you're interested, you can check your own political bias by taking a quick test online. There's going to be a link in the podcast description to politicalcompass.org. The three of us actually took this test, and Lenny, did you want to have a brief discussion on it?
Yeah. So just to be clear, there are, it's not a perfect test. And I think we can all agree on that. It is, so there's a lot of generalizations in the questions, but it'll get you in like thinking the right into like it'll get you thinking in a direction, right? So for example, if for those of you who have taken the test or are looking at like a generalized plot on the politicalcompass.org website, I specifically, my scores are negative 8.5 to the left and a negative 5.95 to more towards libertarian. So that puts me in a position of thinking that is somewhere between Mandela and Marx. So that's just, again, that's my personal test result. I will caveat that by saying, like, I generally tend to believe that there should be more governmental oversight. So I wouldn't consider myself personally libertarian, regardless of what this test says, because I think that companies should be more heavily regulated. I feel like a lot of our societal woes are done because there's less check on what's happening in the economic sector, which causes a knock-on effect into our environment, so on and so forth.
Interesting. Wes, how about you?
I also scored bottom left, pretty close to like where like south of Bernie, north of Namchansky. It's really close to libertarian, which if you think of like quote unquote libertarians, famous libertarians, freaking Ben Shapiro, like dude's a straight up fascist, but he calls himself a libertarian. And I'm like, that's where this chart's putting pretty much everyone in this group. And so the point of this is you're hearing people say there's something on the television, like, oh, I'm a libertarian, but like you think completely different than this person on the television, and maybe they're not. I don't know if that's the point I was trying to make, but yeah, I've taken this test for about a decade on and off, not like consistently, of course. And I just keep becoming more left and more, I guess, libertarian. But I'm also, just like Lenny said, there should be government regulation for the market. I think a free market will like a completely free market and a anarcho-capitalist style is not good for anyone, especially poor people.
Kevin, do you want to kind of talk about your test results?
Yeah. So I'm a complete fascist compared to these two blokes. No, not really. I'm dead center in the compass as far as between dead center on the middle left, and dead center on the libertarian side as well. So -5 and -5 as you would have it if you were looking at this graph when you go to this website here. I'm somebody who was, I was raised conservative, with conservative ideals, and I've learned a lot over the last few years. And it's what's funny, and I was telling the guys this too when we were taking this test, is that even when I was, quote unquote, conservative, when I took this test years ago, it still had me a little left of center, because I had a lot of liberal views despite considering myself conservative. I always believed in gay marriage. I always believed in gun rights, and I always believed in medicinal marijuana, for example. So what was really nice about that, if I think about it, a few years ago, it was very revealing. Like Lenny said, it's not a perfect test, but it was very revealing and really planted those seeds to make me kind of think. And when the pandemic happened, it started a couple of years ago, and some things took place, and people responded to things a certain way, and I found myself agreeing with the side that I didn't think that I was on. There was a lot of cognitive dissonance there, but I would proudly say that I'm left leaning, and learning what I have about myself, and from the compass, I consider myself a proud liberal now on the compass.
So just for our listeners' sake, we will throw up our own personal charts. So maybe if you want to, you can compare your own, and then just go through the Political Compass website and just kind of see some of the stuff they're talking about. We'll also throw up a link from their website. It's called the Crowd Chart. It shows where some more of the notable people in history land, like Trump, Bush, Obama, Stalin, Gandhi, Marx, George Washington, Jefferson, Rand Paul, those sort of guys. So just compare for your own sake.
And it only takes about 10 minutes to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely do it. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, talking about fact-checking media and going over the media bias chart. Stick around. Welcome back, everyone, to episode 66 of the Life Midwest podcast. On the other side of the break, it's your host, Kevin Palmer, Wes Shirley, and Lenny Wells. Hey, if you're looking for ways to support us, we do have a plethora of ways available to do so. Check us out on any of our major social platforms at The Life Midwest, including TikTok now. We also have a website at thelifemidwest.com. It does cost money to run and produce the show. If you'd like to make a donation to us at paypal.me/thelifemidwest. And of course, we can also leave us a review on your favorite listening platform. You can also email us at support@thelifemidwest.com. No new emails to read this week, but we always will if we get something, unless you tell us not to for some reason. Hope everyone's having a great Saturday or whatever day of the week that you happen to be listening to this on. It does go live at 6 a.m. Eastern time. So, if that puts you in a time zone where it's like Sunday night or Sunday morning somewhere else, I can't, I don't know. I'm sorry. Boys, before we head out today, I wanted to get some final thoughts from Wes as far as, some final talking points to cover, and then finally cover the this lovely chart down here of the All Sites Media Bias chart. But Wes, I'm going to kick it over to you. What do you got for us, bud?
So since we're talking about media, I do just want to make a quick note that media is extremely important in our country, or the US, that is. If you're from somewhere else, media is also important in your country. But it's so important in our country that we have it coded into our Constitution. It's in our First Amendment, the Bill of Rights that was demanded upon the states joining the Union. They're like, no, we want a Bill of Rights. We want some inalienable rights that tyrants aren't going to take us over. And basically, the freedom of press, freedom of speech, that is media. So you have the freedom of the press in the US, and it's important that you know how to be media literate. And here's a couple reasons you can appreciate your freedom of the press. You're able to criticize your government without being taken away. You can listen to investigative journalists criticize your government and expose corrupt politicians without being taken away. We know which politicians we want. Sorry, I had something in my throat.
Is it D's nuts?
Got him.
All right. There are some restrictions, of course, to our rights. I mean, you can't scream fire in public or report something that's not incorrect, but whatever. The point is, you have the freedom of the press, and we should know what the press is telling us because it's an intrinsic part of our democracy. It's sometimes called the fourth estate for a reason. We have the three separations of power, and the media is the fourth power. It tells us what the other three powers are doing, and it reports on if they're stealing our liberties, which is why everyone knew immediately when Roe versus Wade was overturned. So the news is really important.
The news is really important, and it's also important to fact check media, right?
That's super important.
Right.
I'd say that's about as important as the freedoms that the media has and the media itself.
Absolutely. And sometimes people are intellectually lazy or maybe maliciously deceitful, right? They want to give you misinformation, or they just accidentally give you misinformation because they don't give a fuck. You should probably be able to discern what is fact and false within media. What's propaganda even? You're watching your favorite television show. It's not just entertainment. They throw political views at you. They throw quote unquote facts at you. You should probably know that.
And the important thing to keep in mind too, boys, is that even the best researchers will be fooled once in a while. If you find yourself fooled by a fake news story, don't just say, oh well, I can't, I think a lot of people have this like they do this overcorrecting, and I think it applies here in this context where it's like let's say you get your news from CNN and CNN reported on something wrong, and now you're like, and you didn't fact check it, and now you're like, well, now I can't trust CNN. It's like, no, it just means that you need to learn from your experiences and fact check more. So just, keep that in mind.
Speaking of CNN reporting, that kind of leads nicely into our media bias chart, which will be posted up.
Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of go through this here, and I just want to have a quick discussion before we go to the shout outs of if there's anything on here that surprises you guys. But
So this all sides media bias chart comes from allsides.com. Again, there may be some of their own bias here. Let's not skirt around that. We'll also be posting up a media bias chart that comes from adfontesmedia.com, which shows not only its left, center, left, right, or center bias, but also reliability. And we won't talk about it, but like I said, we'll post it up with the rest of these images.
So going from the most leaning left, according to this chart, is Alternet, BuzzFeed, CNN, Democracy Now, Daily Beast, HuffPost, The Intercept, Jacobin. I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, it's not one I'm familiar with.
Yeah, Mother Jones, MSNBC, The New Yorker, The New York Opinion Times, or The New York Times Opinion, The Nation, Slate, and Vox. Most of those don't surprise me. Those that lean slightly left, we have ABC, AP Politics and Fact Check, The Atlantic, Bloomberg, CBS, The Economist, The Guardian, Insider, NBC, The New York Times News, NPR, Politico, ProPublica, Time, The Washington Post, USA Today, and Yahoo News. In the center, you have AP, Axios, BBC, the Christian Science Monitor, Market Watch, News Nation, Newsweek, Reuters, Real Clear Politics, The Hill, and the Wall Street Journal News.
Something that does surprise me about specifically the center is Christian Science Monitor.
Yeah, that does surprise me as well.
I don't know what that is. I've never heard of that publication before, but if the name's anything to go by, I would expect it to be at very least right-leaning.
Absolutely, yep. Speaking of right-leaning, leaning slightly to the right is the American Conservative, Deseret News, the Dispatch, the Epoch Times, the Independent Journal Review, the New York Post, the Post Millennial, Reason, the Wall Street Journal Opinion, the Examiner, and the Washington Times. Leaning at the far most right, most of these probably won't surprise you. We have the American Spectator, Breitbart, Blaze, CBN, Daily Caller, Daily Mail, Daily Wire, Fox News, The Federalist, National Review, New York Post Opinion, Newsmax, and OAN. One that really, I think, surprised me, to be honest with you, was I think the one that surprises me the most is NPR leaning slightly left. I've always viewed that as a very, very central news source, but I can also see how others might view that as leaning slightly left. MSNBC kind of surprised me as well as CNN. I expected them to lean left, but not be a hard left.
Yeah, I've always considered NPR instinctually, or maybe not instinctually, but I want it to be center. But based off of like who I know that like either listens or read NPR articles, it's never anybody that skews towards the right. It's always anybody that's like a true centrist or skews left. So I think CNN broadcasting is correct in its placement, but I think CNN articles should be a little bit closer to left lean. I think MSNBC is okay where it's at. Yeah, Slate, Vox. I think those are all good.
Yeah, Vox and BuzzFeed definitely are right where they belong.
Yeah, especially BuzzFeed. HuffPost is exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah.
I think Bloomberg is an odd one for me. I think Bloomberg should either be center or like lean right. I don't really see much in Bloomberg that hits my confirmation bias. I think the majors like Fox, CBS, NBC, I think those should be maybe posted more towards center. especially like when it comes to like primetime news.
Mm-hmm.
I think Time should be center as well. They maybe it's okay where it is. Thinking about it a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
I think Yahoo could probably be to the far left. I think USA Today is okay where it's at.
The chart does say all ratings are based on online content only, not TV, print, or radio content. So
Yeah,
take
well,
that for what it's worth.
And that's why like I'm kind of like making the distinction for some of these like between like broadcasting and online content. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. I don't think as far as like going once you hit center to and then like the right leaning organizations, I think those are exactly where they need to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Wes, any thoughts from you, bud?
So I'm under the opinion that the US political spectrum is skewed to the point where everyone in that left column is actually more center right on the global scale. So the left column makes sense. The New York Times, I don't know the New York Times opinion, because anytime you go on the New York Times website, it's like, yo, pay us. By the way, go to archive.com. You don't, no paywalls. You can just read whatever article you want. Because they save a picture of the website from every day.
Oh, that's a real
Day.
life hack right there. Yeah.
Another one in that same vein is going to be the Wayback Machine.
That is Archive.
Oh, is it?
Same website. Yep.
Oh, okay. I only know it's Wayback.
The tool is Wayback Machine, and it's on archive.com.
Okay.
So like the New York Times is like center right. I've seen so many posts where they're just like Gen Z and millennials want to get back to the office ASAP, and it's like, no, the fuck we don't.
Right.
So like a lot of these are,
I think those are more of the opinion pieces, but yeah, so
and somehow that's left. But the US as a whole is center right. Like our left party, our Liberal Party, is center right on the global scale. So if we're basing on politics on a global scale, all of these are center to right, except for like a few noticeable ones on the left hand column. Obviously Vox and MSNBC and BuzzFeed.
Yeah, I would say when you compare it to Europe, as Mercedes said 2 weeks ago on the show, in her segment on the Roe v. Wade episode, a lot of what is considered left in America is more centrist, at best over in Europe or in Parliament. I mean, the people, the news outlets that you're looking at on the lean right and right side here, she said those are the people who get laughed at in Parliament. So I mean, just to back up what you're saying, Wes, it's compared to Europe, it's, I would say, not necessarily the world, but definitely Europe, definitely shows a scale there.
But that might be our own bias too.
That might be our own bias, so make sure you fact check us. Hey, before we go to the shoutouts, any final thoughts, Wes?
If a claim is extraordinary, it requires extraordinary proof. And yeah, don't be fooled. Also, know your biases.
Know your biases. Don't be fooled. Constant vigilance.
Here.
Nobody's laughing at my jokes this week. Which means it's time for the shout-outs. It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. Lenny, who do you want to shout out this week?
Extra big juicy shout out to my wife, Brittany.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot going on over there.
Yeah, sorry for your editing nightmare, Kevin. Things have been kind of crazy over here. But yeah, she's trying to keep it down as much as possible, and I thank her every day for it. Wes, I want to shout you out specifically. You put some great notes together this week. You really nailed the research on this, and I hope that our listeners it comes through to our listeners. Kevin, it's a preemptive shout out for editing this, and yeah, that's what I got. Wes, who are you shouting out?
Shout out to Mothers Call Your Moms. Shout out to Yui, my wife. She's currently shut away in a room, being ultra polite of my recording circumstances. She's actually probably sleeping because it's 2 a.m. And shout out to, oh, by the way, another life hack, Google fact check is awesome. It's just toolbox.google.com/fact check. You can fact check anything in the entire world. You don't even have to try hard. You just type in is the thing I heard on the news true? And Google comes up with like 30 different results telling you yes or no. So shout out to Google for making life easier sometimes.
All right, Kevin, give us your shout outs.
Want to shout out my amazing fiance, Ashley. Want to shout out Wes for doing an incredible job with some notes this week and getting this all put together so Lenny and I can look like we know what the fuck we're talking about every week. Really appreciate you, man. Hey, also want to shout out Brittany as well for managing the Washington Zoo. I'm just kidding. Your kids are amazing. And lastly, but not least, I want to shout out.
What about dem nuts?
Those nuts?
No, not those either. And before you ask, no, it wasn't their nuts either.
Who's nuts?
What's nuts?
When's nuts?
I'll do you one better. Why is Gamora? No?
What?
Okay.
I was nuts.
Sorry, little Avengers reference there, but okay.
We got to go, folks. I got to watch the Avengers. Call your mom. Don't forget to stop by our socials at The Life Midwest, or check us out at thelifemidwest.com, or drop us an email at support@thelifemidwest.com. Leave us a review on your favorite listening platform, please. It's the biggest and easiest way that you can support us for free. If you don't want to head over to paypal.me /The Life Midwest and send us money. Other than that, we will talk to you guys next Saturday and every Saturday here on the Life Midwest podcast. Take care. Have a good one.
Bye.